they need to pull it out in a hurry.
All right, Ralph, that is very impressive. Now, Ken, certainly these guys are behind. If any team can bounce back, it's an Evernham Motorsports team. But just what does it do to your mindset when you lose the main car 4 laps into practice?
Well, I don't think it bothers them that much because they have so much confidence in those crews. And don't think for a moment that's just changing an engine. They go through the back end of that car. They check everything on it because it's all covered in whatever you just erupted and threw out of the motor. And they take just the most minute pieces and take a very careful examination of them because it's so critical when you get in and into this race. So I think the point here is that you go with great confidence. You know that you've got a clean car and you've got a clean engine and back to the races.
And the guy who's going to be front and center throughout the entire teardown process is Ray Evernham.
Yeah. Now, there was one other point that I thought was interesting, and that was when you heard Nemechek and Biffle talking about bumping somebody through this race. Now, that's happened, and we saw it happen with the Wallace brothers. Remember when Rusty won this race, it was Kenny Wallace who bump drafted him going into 3 and literally threw Rusty out in front to win the Budweiser shootout. And that certainly could happen again tomorrow night. Be interesting if it was the two you just had on here with Nemechek and Biffle.
If there's any place that you need a friend in this world, it's on the Daytona International Speedway when you're in the draft.
And it's free beer. It's free beer.
Yeah, and family members too can help you get free beer. You just have to get the right brand of beer depending on who you're driving for. Folks, we've got to take another quick break, but we'll be back in just a moment with much more of Speedweeks on Speed Channel. We're going to take you all the way up to Bud Shootout practice in just a few moments. Welcome back, everybody, to Speedweeks on Speed, where we are just beginning some 70 hours of coverage from Daytona. Today's menu still has on it Bud Shootout's final practice in just a few moments. Then we'll be back with you, take you up to 8 o'clock with a full wrap-up of the day on Speedweeks on Speed, which is presented by Office Depot. One of the great things and one of the great dramatic things about the Daytona 500 is the point system goes back to the previous year. Many guys come to this speedway with new cars who don't have the points to get in just on points. They have to race their way in. So let's hear from some of the guys who are coming down here on a wing and a prayer.
Yeah, we're concerned about it the first 5 races. Now, once we get past that, we're probably happy about it. Here at Daytona, I think everybody's a little anxious, to get qualified. And then we go on to the next races, and what we really worry about is not speed to get in, but worry about weather. I mean, if it rains or if it cancels qualifying, we're pretty much out of luck.
It's really cool that I'm getting a chance to run the 500 here and make my first start, but it's pretty nerve-wracking, knowing that it's going to be hard to make, and a lot of cars are going to go home, and, we could very easily be one of them.
Well, I think it's right. I think, let's look at the people that have supported the series. I actually talked about that rule, some configuration of that rule. It's not exactly the way, because I didn't really, all I just have it as an idea. I thought that it'd be good to protect certain people, I mean, we got to the end of last year, and some of those guys that were in the top 35, did get kicked out in the last couple of races. And you look at it, they've been here all year, and then they have guys like me coming in, and it was more than just me. But it happens, and you get 60 cars, and one of them's bound to have a bad day.
I really like the new rules, because when you go to that racetrack, instead of having 2 things on your mind, which is practicing for the race and getting qualified, you have one thing on your mind, and that's what we should have had on our mind all along, is the race. So, being able to get out there and practice for the race and park the car knowing that we're going to get to race that car is really great for our sport. It's going to save some money, it's going to be easier on the crews, and it's just going to make better racing.
Well, those guys have their work cut out for them to make it into the show. Let's go down and take our show to Bob Dillner. Bob?
Jason Leffler was one of those guys that spoke during that little feature that we ran there, and he's one of the guys that's battling for one of 8 spots in the Daytona 500. And that's pretty unique, and man, Jason, that's got to be a lot of pressure. You a little bit nervous?
Not really, just anxious to get on the track. Dave Rogers and the guy they've done a great job with the FedEx Express, and we hope it has the speed. We think we made big improvements since testing, and talking to Tony and Bobby, their cars are pretty good in the shootout practice, so we're looking forward to it.
You don't know which Gatorade dual race you're going to be in yet, but how much of an advantage would it be if you had 1 or 2 of your Gibbs Racing teammates in that race?
That'd be great. It would be great if it worked out where they're both in it, but I don't know. We'll just have to deal with the circumstances, and I think the team's up for it. I'm up for it, and we knew this going in. It was going to be, it's going to be a challenge, but I don't see any problems. He's going to go. I hope we get locked in so I can go out Thursday and race hard and race for the win.
I was going to say, is it a crapshoot? Is it just an all-or-nothing race? What is it for you?
Well, right now we don't know. If you ask me Sunday after qualifying, then I'll be able to tell you a little bit more. Right now, we just hope to get this FedEx car, get a good qualifying time where we know we're locked in. Then I can go Thursday and put the hammer down and learn as much as I can.
By the way, folks at home, I just want you to know Jason Leffler didn't grow like a foot during the winter. He's standing on a Goodyear Eagle tire here trying to get up to my height. But Jason Leffler, one of the guys trying to battle into the 500. One of the guys that's safely in is his teammate, Bobby Labonte, and he's with Ralph Shaheen.
That's exactly right, Bob Dillner. And Bobby Labonte is going to start 19th in tomorrow night's Bud Shootout. How's your car?
It's not bad. It looks about like a lot of other people's out there. I mean, it'll drive pretty good, and you get the right run on somebody, you can make a pass with some help, and you just kind of stay there and hope for the next move to open up so you make another pass.
We were talking with Tony earlier today about how you and him got together in that last practice session. He said that's just part of it when you're out there and you're running that close. Give us your perspective from behind the wheel of how that happens. That you don't even really understand that it's coming. It just does.
Yeah, you try to get as close to each other as possible to try to take the air, use his air or the other person's air to prepare yourself forward a little bit, and you try to get to them, as you're, behind their right front or left front tire, and you just kind of squeeze over to them and then pull away, and that kind of helps break the air for your car to pull out and maybe pull up a little bit. And usually you don't even make the pass. Sometimes you might, but I mean, it's so hard to do. And, you just kind of, slide at each other. It's no big deal.
Now we're talking about inches apart at 190 miles an hour. How do you judge that gap of when, okay, I'm right where I need to be, now I can turn away?
If you start smelling rubber burning, it's probably lasting a little bit too long. But if you can do it and just feel it, then it's not bad.
Do you feel like you've ever mastered that technique, or is that something that you're always a rookie at?
I don't, I don't try to practice it a whole lot and practice as much as, when the race is when it counts, so. But you got to make sure you know what you're doing too, and we trust everybody out there, so you just try to go out there and do a little bit of it, but you don't want to go out there and just run into somebody either.
All right, Bobby Labonte, good luck to you tonight. He's going to be starting 19th in tomorrow's Budweiser Shootout.
All right, Ralph, thanks a lot. Bobby Labonte's been in this Bud Shootout 9 times, never won, has one top 5, Ken, but he's a guy that you always have to look at whenever you're racing.
Exactly, and the story here in the Budweiser Shootout and in the Daytona 500, it defies the imagination. They got 43 starters a week Sunday. You go down through and take a look at each of the names and say, okay, here's one or two you can dispense with. I mean, not a shot. You can't do that. Every single one of them have that confidence and the kind of equipment, like Martin Truex, that kid from the Northeast. The whole New England area is all behind this boy from New Jersey who ran up there in NASCAR North. And they know how good he is. And so do the Dale Earnhardt people. They put him in that car that won the Busch Series last year. And dark horses have won this 500. Anybody that is in this show a week from Sunday, you got a pretty good shot of, well, I wouldn't mention Las Vegas or anything like that. But this is one where those kind of folks that make those odds usually get left far, far out in the park. It's very hard to predict this race because any one of them that makes it can bring it home.
Now, what Jason Leffler was talking about just a moment ago, he was talking about getting locked in, and that would take the pressure off of him. What he's talking about is this very unique qualifying process at Daytona where just the front row, the first 2 starters are set on qualifying this Sunday. Then everybody else is up to race. One of these guys, if you did not make it in that front row, that's when you're going to have to race your way in, as they talked about, Ken. And the guys that don't have the points, they're the ones that if they are not on the front row, they're really behind the pack.
Yeah, the rule for the duel is stand on it, particularly this year because everybody's scratching their head about, really, now how is this thing going to work out?
So much easier said for us than done for them on the racetrack is to go out there and take one of the top 2 positions, and that way you can guarantee your spot in the Great American Race next Sunday. Folks, we still have a lot more to come on this edition of Speedweeks on Speed. There's the 8 car getting ready to go out for the second Bud Shootout practice, which we'll have here on Speed in just moments. Welcome back, everyone, to Speed Weeks on Speed, and we certainly hope that gentleman is okay. He's okay, good. The feet are moving. All right, we're worried about that gentleman, wondering if he was working on the car, if he was just sleeping underneath the truck, but he's okay.
If they were sleeping, it was Dillner.
Yeah. All right. Bobby Dillner is not asleep. He's working very hard. We're going to get to him in just a moment. But first of all, for Jimmy Johnson, 2004 was a very emotionally trying year for the 48 team. The ups and downs were around every corner, but Johnson is ready for a fresh start in 2005, especially after what he did in the offseason.
I lost one of my buddies when he got married. That was pretty sad. But we had a good time. We were down. Jimmy got married, and we were down in St. Bart's for a week and had a blast. We had a little poker run. We took scooters around the island and picked cards, and it was a good time. Let's see. I had a bachelor party immediately after the season was over, so that's technically in the off season, and that was a big time. And then I had my wedding, which was pretty much a week-long event with all of our closest friends and family. So that, between those two, I'd have to say I've covered my wildest and the most fun.
I think we all here on the Speed Channel stage truck agree that Jimmy Johnson's bachelor party was a big time. Well, let's go down to Bob Dillner now, who is standing by with a guy who's won this thing before and is always a favorite of this Bud Shootout. Bob?
That's right, a two-time winner, Kenny Schrader. He will start fifth. Some work being done to your Schwann's automobile behind you. What's going on?
Just trying, looking for a little more speed and change a couple of things up underneath, trying to get it to keep the front end down a little better and go a little faster. But it wasn't bad and it was driving good, so pretty excited.
Fun thing to come out here and start out with a draft practice for the Bud Shootout. And I know, Budweiser has been a long-time supporter of yours. And what type of race is this? Is this a go-for-broke type of race?
Yeah, it's a riot because, you're at Daytona, but, man, you're just going to go to racing to go to victory lane. You're not racing worrying about points or anything like that. Obviously, you don't want to tear up your stuff, but when it comes in the closing laps, you can do whatever you got to do because there's only one winner here. It's not like you leave with top 5 points or anything.
Kenny Schrader has been pretty busy down here in Speedweeks. He's run his dirt late model over at East Bay Speedway. He's going to run Volusia next week, as well as a super late model at New Smyrna Speedway as well. And he didn't want to talk about his outing the other night there at East Bay Ralph because he didn't do too well. But he did win one of those races out there, and he wanted me to point that out.
Bob, we go from a veteran of the shootout to a rookie in the Budweiser shootout, Brian Vickers. How's it coming here, rookie again? Are you getting used to this Budweiser shootout?
Yeah, see, I am getting used to it. I'm like not having that yellow on the back bumper. That's helping some, but the Bud Shootout's fun. It's a prestigious race. I mean, obviously, just to be in it, you've got to qualify on the Bud pole. But, we're okay. We need to pick up a little bit. We need to suck up a little bit. This isn't our best car. Obviously, we saved that for the 500, and we were really tight in that last practice. We made a lot of changes. We'll go back out there and see what we have.
That's some of what's going on behind us. What kind of changes are you making?
Well, right now, they're setting the toe. We changed a bunch of stuff that I can't detail too much for you, but we just a lot of stuff up in the front end to really try to get the car to turn better. And I wish I could tell you more. I just don't want to give away all my secrets.
In other words, John, that's all the stuff we can't see, but we can tell you he'll start fourth.
All right, Ralph and Brian Vickers, thanks a lot, guys. There's much more Speed Weeks on Speed presented by Office Depot coming your way, and then we will take you right up to Bud Shootout practice under the lights, which comes your way in just moments. Stick around, everybody.
Speed Weeks on Speed Channel is presented by Netscape low-cost internet service. Netscape, just the net you need.
Well, the sun is set on the Daytona International Speedway. It has become a little bit more chilly, and here's what we have yet to come on today's menu. Next, Budweiser Shootout final practice under the lights, and then at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll be back on the Speed Channel stage truck with a live half hour wrapping up the whole afternoon and evening of Bud Shootout practice. And Ken, this is the real practice. This is really what we're looking for because this is under the lights. This is how the race will be run.
Yeah, what we've got is what you're going to get for tomorrow night. You can be pretty sure about that. 1 point. McMurray earlier discounted that whole business about the tires. I got a real problem with that. I mean, they ran the 24 hours here last week, so they got a lot of rubber in this track, and we've had 2 cars with real problems. This is a very important thing to watch coming up.
All right, Ken, we'll be keeping an eye on the tires, and the Budweiser Shootout practice under the light comes your way next. Stick around, everybody.
...2005 Speedweeks on Speed Channel, presented by Office Depot. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway, our continuing coverage of Speedweeks 05 with Budweiser Shootout practice. The track has just opened up. 17 cars were in line for the first green flag. And before we get to coverage, let's have a look at the session times from round 1 earlier this afternoon.
Yeah, pretty fast, 191 miles an hour, that 47.1 is. Cats are moving on out there tonight.
But now the track has cooled down. This is more like the conditions they'll be racing in tomorrow night. If they get lined up just right in the draft, I think we'll see speeds quicker than that.
Let's begin our coverage tonight with Steve Burns in the Nexo Cup Garage.
Hey, Mike Joy, thanks a lot. You know, I was watching the first practice session. You guys were talking about everything that's new. Well, this is my 20th Daytona 500, and this new garage area has me all confused. I think so much so that somebody gave me this button. So one guy who isn't lost, as you documented, is Joe Nemechek. We talked to car chief Pete Wright. He said they've gone from a 22 gear to an 18 gear to help front row Joe in the draft. Back up to you guys.
You see Joe Nemechek out there in front of Jeff Gordon in the draft. Hi, everybody. Mike Joy, Darrell Waltrip, Larry McReynolds with you once again as our coverage on Speed Channel will continue all throughout, leading right up to the Daytona 500. And wow, feels good, looks new out there, and fun to be back.
Oh, it is. It's great. And, of course, the cars are on the track. The lights are on, and a lot of weird new paint jobs the guys are going to run tomorrow night. Gear changes, spring changes. Man, it's exciting, isn't it, Larry?
Well, and you know, almost every season we're always able to talk about the driver changes, the sponsor changes. But as we come here to Speed Weeks, I think the biggest thing that is going on in that garage here during the off-season is head coach changes, a lot of crew chief changes. 2 guys that finished in the top 10 in points last year, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeremy Mayfield, they're working with new crew chiefs. So we have a lot of changes, and that's the biggest thing they'll try to be sorting out here early in Speed Week, is getting that relationship with that new crew chief these drivers are having to work with.
Fortunately, we have not changed crew chief. Larry will be up here. Jeff Hammond will be down the hot. One incident in the first hour. Casey Kane lost an engine in his number 9 Dodge Dealer's Dodge. That bright go mango colored car in front of Greg Biffle. Something grenaded, came out the pipes, out the back. They had to change the engine, and as a result, Casey Kane will be starting the Budweiser Shootout from the tail end of the field after that engine change. Dick Berger.
Well, Kane's problem started right at the very beginning of the practice session. He had to come in virtually immediately because the car was dragging bottom. They worked underneath it, tried to get that fixed. He went out, lost the engine. So Kane has had virtually no practice. And indeed, Mike, he will have to start at the tail end of this 20-car field. But that does not mean he can't win the race. 2 years ago, Earnhardt Jr. started 19th and won. Last year, Earnhardt Jr. started 19th and finished second. Kane now on the racetrack, getting his first lap at speed.
And the last image we showed you of the first hour of practice, Darrell, was the right rear tire off Dale Jr.'s car, and it was pretty well shredded.
Boy, I tell you, that's the one thing that I saw during that 1 hour practice that really bothered me. Dale Jr. was complaining about the car having a bad tire on it, and that right rear was shredded. A lot of times after the 24-hour race, the track's a little different than what the guys haven't anticipated. Hopefully that's all it is, a track condition, and it'll get better as the cars run.
And just to expand, even though this is a special event, NASCAR still mandates the one-engine rule. That means if you change your engine for whatever reason, even though these cars didn't qualify for this race, they actually drew out of a pot to where they would start this race. The rule still is implemented that if you change engine, you have to start the race at the rear of the field.
I don't mind being at the back in this race. I mean, the first segment's 20 laps, gives you a chance to kind of work your way up through there. You've got all those cars in front of you to draft off of. You can pick your lane, go high, go low, go through the middle. You can get to the front from the back pretty easily.
The way the draft works, you see those 4 cars back there about 100 yards behind this pack. If they get lined up as they're doing here right now, and those cars up in front of them start juggling around, then this pack will be able to catch that pack.
Well, 2 of those cars are the 2 fastest times in this session, 41 Casey Mears and 24 Jeff Gordon at about 190.4 miles an hour.
And that's a good test for these 4 cars right here with Joe Nemechek in the 01 leading them, Jeff Gordon in the 24 back there, to see if they can catch that pack lined up like this.
Well, that's what I say about starting way back. You see how quickly they're closing. Anytime these cars up front are running side by side, just creating a huge suck for those guys to pull right up to the back of them. And they'll get there. I mean, those are fast cars, and what they're really doing is if they made a pit stop, let's say, and they came out of the pit behind a group like that, how long will it take us to catch them? So they're not doing that just to be playing around. They're actually practicing for the race tomorrow night.
And what these guys are doing with a lot of help from their spotters is they're staying acclimated to stay in line like that. Hey guys, let's stay in line. Let's don't mix it up, and let's see how quick we can catch that pack. Well, and they're doing it in a hurry.
Yeah, it took them about 2 laps. And now the question is, where are we going to go now? Because they're already too wide. And you'd like to blow right through there, but you're not necessarily going to do that. And you see the speed between the 01 and the 24. They shot right up there because they were getting that big pull from the cars in front of them.
18 of the 20 cars in that pack as Dale Jarrett peels off to go pit side. The 19th car has just come on the track, Ken Schrader. And there's only one driver who has not practiced at all for the Budweiser Shootout, and that's Jeffrey Bodine.
And we were talking in the earlier show, a lot of people may be confused. Wait a minute, is the Budweiser Shootout for Bud Pole winners from 2004? It is. All 12 of those guys, the other way you get in it, like Jeffrey Bodine, is be a past winner of this race.
And you might say, why are they doing this? You know, why are they running 2 and 3 wide and so close together? You've got to know what your car will do. Sometimes I'd come down here and make a big mistake of saying, I don't want to get involved in all that, get in the race, and the car wouldn't be anywhere near right. Because this is the way you're going to race, for the most part.
See Joe Nemechek in the 01 car right there. Now he's fastest in this session, and it was kind of interesting what Steve Burns talked about this team is doing. And what Steve was talking about, they went from a 322 gear to a 318, a higher gear. I think they anticipated that the speeds will be quicker in this session, a little quicker speeds, a little higher gear. Plus now they'll have information from both gears.
Yeah, plus when they cut the restrictor plate down just a little bit, it won't turn quite as many RPM, maybe 100 or so less. So you're going to have to go higher in the gear.
Regardless, he's still fast.
Nemechek, Jeff Gordon, Casey Mears, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Those 4 cars that were drafting single file by themselves are the 4 fastest right now. Speed Channel's coverage of Bud Shootout practice is presented by Office Depot, taking care of business. They say it, what's that old saying? It can't rain if the moon can hold water. And you have a kind of, I have to draw it for you. And no, not tonight. But see it, you know, it's like a bowl.
When you start off on things like that, I always,
All right, so that's 240,000 miles away, and here we are. Where are we? Well, we're that little dot right here. We're right up there, and here they come. Boy, that's a pretty sight. There they go. That's what we get paid to do. Sorry, folks. Didn't mean to bore you with all that. Joe Nemechek, 191.3 miles an hour. He remains quickest. Jeff Gordon, Casey Mears, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Ricky Rudd are the Fast Five right now. And Schrader came out of the pits late. The pack caught him, but they didn't go by him.
But what I am seeing is Jimmy Johnson in the 48, Jeff Gordon in the 24. They worked together to catch this pack. Now they're right in the middle of this pack, and of course they have Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 8 car behind them.
Of course, Nemechek right there in the 01, he was with them too, and they are slowly working their way. They came up to the back, and they're slowly moving through the field. That's the sign of a pretty fast race car.
You see Casey Mears Dodge just kick out there as he...
Yeah, I've seen that a number of times. He's gotten himself in some precarious situations. He needs to be a little more cautious.
I think we'll see these cars most often as we see Tony Stewart, the orange car, the 20 move to the high side. I think we're going to see these guys make a fairly long run here because we only have about 45 minutes. We talked about tomorrow night's race. The first segment is 20 laps. Then you're able to come to pit road for a 10-minute break to make routine pit stop adjustments on that race car. Then that second segment is 50 laps. So you really have to have the car handling good. They'll have to make a pit stop during that 50 laps.
All right, Jeffrey Bodine's coming on track. He is the one car that had not yet practiced today, but Dick Berggren, where's Bobby Labonte?
Bobby Labonte is in the garage right now, Mike, and he is going to be here for a while. The crew has taken the rear axles out of the car. That is the first stage to changing the rear gear. Now, NASCAR has a gear rule for every place but Daytona and Talladega. You can run whatever you want, and we have seen an awful lot of gear changing going on in the first practice session and certainly between the first practice session and now. Labonte in the garage, going to try to get the engine running at the RPM he wants to make the car perform as he wants.
Well, you have to kind of select a gear that's kind of common ground. You know, if you knew you were going to be out front leading, pulling a pack, you could pull a little higher gear. But as these cars start, the handling starts going away, and you have to start rolling out of the throttle, you have to have that little lower gear.
Yeah, it's incredible how if you just, even though you crack the throttle, how much it hurts the performance of the car. And you need a little gear to get it back up to speed. But man, I tell you, Larry, these cars are jumping around out here tonight. A lot more than I saw them earlier. Of course, it's a lot bigger pack than we saw earlier. But man, I see the cars moving a lot. See Greg Biffle's car kind of run up the hill right there. See the ride he's getting in the car. That's a pretty rough ride. He's juking on that wheel. It's not real comfortable, I'm telling you.
Oh, trouble. Casey Mears.
Yep.
Oh, nice save to keep from coming right back across. Cross traffic, but wow.
Jimmy Johnson in the 48 just skimmed by.
Yeah, buddy. Can't pull. We're good. That was my fault there. I come off the corner there and I flipped off. When I come down, the 21 was still inside there.
And Darrell, turn 2 is normally calamity corner at this racetrack because you're carrying speed and the car wants to move up the racetrack right there.
Watch the 41.
Yeah, the 21, Ricky Rudd, you can see it damaged his right front fender and his left front fender. He was coming down under Casey. Casey cut down. Casey been in a couple of, like I said a little bit ago, a couple of precarious situations.
Well, Casey and Jimmy Johnson just both made a big withdrawal from the luck bank right there.
They did.
And Ricky Rudd, boy, nice job to keep that from being a multi-car calamity.
Yeah, good job. Very good job.
Steve?
Mike, I was listening to Ricky Rudd on the radio, and he said that the lap before that the 41 of Casey Mears had gotten into the back of him pretty hard. So apparently Casey's been pretty aggressive out there in this session.
And guys, what happened over here on the backstretch is a lot on the spotter's shoulders. But at night, this place, I've spotted here. I spotted in the truck race. It's a different perspective, and it's about a mile and a half. It's the reason a lot of teams in the race will use a second spotter on the backstretch.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Normally they'd have somebody over on that turn 2 backstretch grandstand, but tonight, because we just practiced, they got one over here on this side.
They'll do a little cleanup, and then we'll reopen the track for Budweiser Shootout practice. Yikes. "10 years of beating, 10 years of banging, 10 years of the toughest racing in NASCAR. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, 10 years tough, begins February 18th, live from Daytona, right here on Speed. The Florida Dodge Dealers 250, February 18th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Red flag condition, the second one of today, the first one of this practice session. And it comes because Casey Mears made a left turn without his signal on right in front of Ricky Rudd.
Either way, they got to clean up a mess. So probably more places than one in this case.
A good bit of damage on Ricky Rudd.
Yeah, Ricky got
both front fenders.
One thing I saw there I like, Darrell, is Casey kept those front wheels turned hard left to send that car back in the infield instead of out into traffic. Steve?
Yeah, Mike, Casey Mears has made his way over to Ricky Rudd's car to talk to Ricky and Michael McSwain. And on the radio, Casey Mears did take responsibility for the incident, explaining his side of it to Ricky right now. We'll see if we can get in here and get a word with him. Casey? We'll let him go now, guys. They're in a heated conversation with Mr. McSwain.
Well, Larry, you got to understand how Michael McSwain feels, because anytime something happens out there, it's a lot of work for that crew and crew chief.
Well, and you're here in the final practice session, and the front fenders are so sensitive on these race cars, and you question, you feel good about the help down there working with you, but can you get this car exactly back as it was?
Well, and Fatback's down there, he has worked on that car for 90 days getting ready to come down here. And somebody just pushed in, it just bent it up a little bit. He's not happy, and I don't blame him.
That hurts more than your feelings. Let's go back down to Steve.
And Mike, Casey Mears has made his way over here, and Casey saw you go over to talk to Ricky. What was, were you apologizing to him?
Yeah, I didn't think that, I thought that I was clear and I wasn't. I come down on him, and you know, fortunately, nothing really bad happened. I mean, their car's pretty cool. It's got a couple little dings, and, you know, our car's okay, so it wasn't too bad. It was a mistake, though.
Casey, I saw damage to the front end of that car. Was that going to be your backup car for the Daytona 500?
No. We had another car. I mean, it'll probably sit here and be the backup if we make it through the shootout with it. But it's good. It's fast right now. I feel real good about it.
Do you have a spotter on the back stretch? Was it difficult to see, or just a judgment?
No, it was just a timing error on me. I had the momentum going by, and I thought I got clear to go pick back up the draft again. I just come over a little bit too soon. So.
Thanks for your honesty. Appreciate it.
And see, one of the tough things for the drivers in these cars today is with the headrest, the seats the way they're made, the Hans device, you have very little peripheral vision. And so there's a dead spot back there right along beside your quarter panel. You don't think anybody's there, but when you start to make a move, you realize, raw.
Sound like he was anticipating that he had cleared Ricky, but just hadn't quite cleared him.
Yeah, these cars will get such a run on a draft, and you'll think you're going to really just blow up through there. It's almost like they hit a wall of air and slow down, and the guy beside you catches back up.
While things are quiet on the track, there's Jeffrey Bodine's car. It's just come out. It's made a couple of laps for the first time today. Go back down to the garage, Dick Berggren.
And Junior's car is sitting here in the garage, Mike, and there were tire problems in the first practice session. None in this practice session. I've taken a look at all four, and all four of those tires look really good, except the sides of them are just a little bit glazed. They've got the body so close to the tires on this car that they just touch ever so slightly. Junior's looking for a little bit more RPM, but rather than change the gear, they have pulled a chip. That's a little piece of material that's in the ignition system, and that will allow the engine to turn what he asked for, 100 more RPM. His next-door neighbor, on the other hand, Tony Stewart, they got another gear set out. A lot of gear changes have been going on as people struggle to find the right RPM to get the maximal speed here at Daytona.
And of course, with these restrictor plate engines, unlike 2 weeks in Fontana when they'll be turning 92, 93, 9400 RPM, about 7200 RPM makes the most power with this carburetor restrictor plate.
Budweiser Shootout practice. Here are the top speeds. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Daytona Speedweeks on the Fox Network. Tomorrow night, the Budweiser Shootout, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It airs on the Fox affiliate near you. So tune in and find out who gets the first NASCAR checkered flag. of 2005.
Promise you one thing, it won't be boring.
No, here's the way it works. It's a 70-lap race. 20 laps, a 10-minute break, and then 50 laps, and a green-white checkered finish if needed. Caution laps will count in those segments.
But to me, the key in that 50 laps is we know these teams with 13-gallon fuel cells will have to make a pit stop, and that's a lot what played a role in Dale Jarrett winning that race a year ago.
Right.
That pit stop.
Well, let's find out the other side of the story from the back straightaway. Here's Steve.
With Ricky Rudd, Ricky, you guys, Michael McSwain have had a chance to look at the race car. What will you do from here?
Well, we like to try to get back out. You know, it didn't hit any chassis, didn't bend any chassis, but really worried about that right front fender. These things are so sensitive. They tweak them and they tweak them in the wind tunnel and they get the best results. And, you know, now they're sort of having to put Band-Aids on it. It's sort of a shame. It should have never happened.
Saw Casey come over to apologize to you, and you kind of had to be the peacemaker between he and Michael, so everything's all right? Everybody calmed down?
You got to remember, you know, these are the guys that they work hours and hours on these race cars, and to get one bent up, you know, kind of a foolish mistake, really. But you know, it wasn't done on purpose. Casey didn't mean it, but he, you know, was just a little bit too aggressive for the situation that we had out there, and you know, he made a mistake, and we got caught up in it. Hopefully, it's not too bad.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
You know, the other thing I like, Casey came over there. You know, he didn't hide in his car. He didn't stay in his car and didn't ignore the situation. He just went on over there and said, hey, dude, I made a mistake. Told drivers my whole career. Made a mistake, live up to it, move on.
So the track is not as busy as it was a while ago. 7 cars on track and 2, Dale Jr. and Jeff Gordon, waiting to come out from the pit lane. Dick Berggren.
Hey, Darrell, that thing of going around to another driver and admitting a mistake may work here. I tried it one time in a short track, and you couldn't believe the size of my lip shortly after that. The other driver took great exception to my apology. I'm standing in Jeff Gordon's pit area right now.
Big mistake.
Yeah, it was a big mistake apologizing. That was a mistake. Jeff Gordon just left his garage area. They've been working on the cowl on that automobile. He's been fast all night. He was second in the first practice session, second quick so far. They've been just doing a little bit of tweaks here and there. Talked to him. He said nobody is exceptionally fast. Everybody's just about the same. But Gordon seems to be a bit faster than the rest.
That air cleaner and that cowl, because of the difference in their plate. Now, we're only talking a 64, but it changes the airflow into the carburetor. And tweaking on the cowl is where the most speed is. The size of that opening, what it can be, Larry, 18 inches?
2.5 by 20. It cannot be bigger than that, right at the base of the windshield.
Right, and you can close it down and create more pressure in the air cleaner, or you can open it up to maximum 20 inches and create less pressure in the air cleaner. And that affects performance of these engines more than anything.
And speaking of closing down, look at this pack of about 8 or 9 cars about 2/3 of the way down the backstretch. And Jeff Gordon in the 24, he wants to get with that pack. So he's going through turn 4 right now, and it should only be about a 1/4 of a lap before that pack catches him.
It's interesting the way this works. As you come out onto pit road, you stop about the start-finish line with the car just rolling, and when the pack goes by, you gas it. And within about 2 laps, you're out there, and they've caught you, and everything's together again.
Yeah, well, he's running. By the time he gets up to speed, he's still a good 7 or 8 mile an hour slower than that pack. So they're going to go by him, and again, he's going to try to blend in when he gets the draft from one of the cars that go by him.
Riding with Dale Earnhardt Jr., the car that you see the furthest up there, that would be Jeff Gordon in the 24 car.
I mean, just look at that closing rate down the back straightaway. Jeff's got one of the fastest cars here, but with help from other guys, they're going to chase him down and go right by him. That's his teammate, Jimmy Johnson. He may elect to drop in behind Jeff, but I doubt it. And this is, I mean, this is not just to get into this pack. This is knowledge for tomorrow night. What would happen if I got caught out here by myself? All these cars go by. How can I fall in line somewhere, or are they going to blow right by me and I lose the draft?
Joe Nemechek quickest, Jeff Gordon almost identical speeds in this second round of practice for the Budweiser Shootout. Final practice for these cars that will race here tomorrow night on Fox. This February on Speed, Wind Tunnel returns. Tunnelheads rejoice. Dave Despain is back with more callers, more email, more hot topics, more of the biggest names in racing stopping by. Wind Tunnel moves to Sunday night, starting the night of the Daytona 500, 9 p.m. Eastern Time here on Speed.
I love Despain. I mean, you can't stump him.
No.
You can call him about any form of motor racing, and he's got the answer. And I thought it was all him. Then he gave away one of the last nights of the show. Said, I got my researchers in the back going wide open all the time.
Well, so do we, but we don't. Well, we should be bragging on them, but we don't that often.
Tell you what, I'm pretty impressed with Kenny Schrader in that 49 car, the Swans car. I talked to his crew chief quite extensively yesterday, David Hyder. That team was not even ready to test down here. They ended up going to Talladega, so this is the first drafting that they're doing. But David said that Beth Ann Morgenthau, the owner, they made a new commitment to the sport, that they have built all new cars. They changed a lot of people out. So I look for this team maybe to be pretty competitive this year. And they're showing it right here in this practice session.
Schrader's been good here at Daytona just about every time he's ever been here, just whatever he was driving.
Lets the pack go as he is headed pit side. And
Told me he had one of the worst tumbles he'd had in a long time, maybe ever, in his dirt modified car. Flipped it out of the ballpark and collapsed the roll cage, busted his helmet. He said it was a hard ride.
One of only 2 back-to-back winners of the Budweiser Shootout that are in the field, that is. All right, Steve Burns is with the fastest man in Daytona.
Mike Joy, Joe Nemechek sitting in the race car. Joe, you guys made a gear change. Are you happy with the direction you're going in? And also, I noticed Ryan Pemberton a little concerned looking at one of your tires that just came off.
Well, I haven't. I've been asking about the tire, you know, since we all saw Dale Jr.'s tire earlier. I don't know. My car is driving great. The Army car is good. We're sucking up good. The car is fast. I've been able to pass high, low, but it's driving right, and that's the most important thing for this race. I don't know what's going on with the tire. I guess I probably should get out and go look at it. But, you know, it's going to be a good race.
Don't look.
We're going to try and figure out how much fuel we can get in our fuel cell now. We just got a few things strategy-wise we got to work on for this next half hour.
DW says it's probably better if you don't get out and look.
No, after what I saw on TV at Dale Jr., holy moly, just don't know what's going on here. And the first practice, you know, we ran 15 laps, and we thought we had something to cut it. But I almost think we're starting to see that problem also.
That's the update from Joe Nemechek.
You guys, as I walked through the garage area yesterday and talked to a few drivers, confidence on Joe Nemechek, and I think it's based on how they ran the end of last year, 2 Bud poles, won the Kansas race. He said, we are ready to rock.
And they had a great test down here. He and Scott Riggs and Boris Ted all had really good speed. Oh, by the way, one other back-to-back winner of what was then the Busch Clash, now the Budweiser Shootout, our buddy Neil Bonnet, 1983 and 84, won it in back-to-back years. Practice rolls on at Daytona, and we're here with you on Speed. We'll be right back. Speed Channel's continuing coverage of Bud Shootout Practice is brought to you by Zales, the Diamond Store, and by Harley-Davidson Motorcycles. It's time to ride. Tightly bunched pack coming off turn 4 as business is picking up.
Yes, it is, and look who's leading this group around here right now.
Like old Wild Bill Elliott, that 39 car.
Awesome Bill from Dawsonville. Does that bring back any memories to any of y'all besides me?
The only memories I don't remember seeing in 85, the pack was never that close to him.
Oh, you're exactly right.
Didn't have the 3 in front of the 9, but otherwise. Whoa, hang on to that Tony.
Oh, you can get down there, but can you hang?
Hello, Newman.
Hey, I've been watching Ryan Newman during this session and the earlier session in that 12 car. He looks pretty racy.
Yeah, you know, this hadn't been necessarily his favorite track, I don't think. It's good to see old Newman get up there and race him a little bit. You know, he's fast.
Newman 6th fastest, Stewart 9th fastest in this practice session so far. 1 year ago, Dale Jarrett drove the victory. in the Budweiser Shootout. He is the defending champion of this race. Let's get an update on Jarrett from down in his garage. He is now a, what, 3-time winner, Steve, of this race?
Defending and 3-time champion of the Shootout, Mike, and they have changed air cowls for the 2nd time in this practice session. DJ brought the car in just a moment ago. He says it's been picking up a vibration off of turn 2, and says it's killing the power somewhat. So they're scratching their heads a little bit, looking under the hood and under the rear end of this race car.
Well, I'm hearing a lot of work going on in the cowl area. Darrell, you were talking about that earlier. NASCAR mandates the size of the hole, but it's the shape that takes the air to the air cleaner that you can play with a little bit.
Dale Jarrett's record at Daytona is an impressive one. 3 500s, 3 shootouts, 1 July race, and 1 of what used to be the Twin 125s, now the Gatorade Dual at Daytona. Plus he's won IROC and a shootout qualifier. Let's check with Dick Berger on the man who's 11th fastest thus far.
That's Bobby Labonte, who's going to start way in the back of the pack tomorrow night, Mike. And guess what they just did to Bobby Labonte's car? And if you guessed cowl change, you got it. Everybody here seems to be doing that. Labonte's crew has also changed the front anti-roll bar. They went to an anti-roll bar that's much smaller than the one they had on before. Labonte said that the car tended to snap loose on him when he turned hard left. He's going back out the racetrack. And you know, you might wonder if these guys tested for 3 days, how come they didn't sort that cowl out then? Most of those runs during that 3-day test was solo runs.
Whoa, car in the wall? Is that car in the wall?
I couldn't tell. He went high all the way through 1 and 2. I think it's Casey Kane, but I'm not sure.
Kurt Busch, the 97 car.
He was high in 1 and 2. I could not tell if in fact he got against the fence or not.
Got way up high and slowed suddenly.
He may have just been getting out of the way. I'm like you. I looked over and saw him rim riding.
Well, we'll find out as he comes past. Steve?
Mike, overhearing Joe Nemechek on the radio, he said he thought that that car in front of him had a flat tire, so that might have been the issue with that near incident.
If you want to panic a bunch of race car drivers, let them see a tire like came off of Dale Jr.'s car. It runs through the garage like wildfire. Tire problem, tire problem. I have a tire problem. A driver can't go out and make 10 laps without thinking there's something wrong with his tire.
Dale Jr. slow in the back straightaway, coming around, pulling down below the yellow line in the backstretch, which if you're coming to pit during a practice, that's the approved method.
Oh, it's the safest thing to do is get down out of the way, get your hand up as much as possible, pull down early and let people know what you're doing.
I don't know that I heard his engine running, so he may have gotten a plug
Felt like
check.
it was tightening up a couple. Feel like it just lost.
That's trouble.
Yeah. It says it felt like it was tightening up.
Meaning the engine?
What I would think he's talking about is possibly the engine. Now, one thing that I might mention that a lot of these cars could be experiencing here, and I'm going to go back to the 97 car where just all of a sudden it looked like he stopped running, is we heard Joe Nemechek talking a while ago. We want to try to find out how much fuel our fuel cells will hold, and that will dictate how far we can go in that second segment. You run out of gas in the middle of a pack, that's what's going to happen right there. So just speculating possibly some of these teams may be doing that. A lot of them have new cars, new fuel cells. They want to know exactly how many gallons of fuel they'll hold.
Have you ever figured out how big these fuel cells are?
I'm hearing about 13 and a half gallons.
Watch up top. Kurt Busch did not get into the wall.
No, he moved up out of the way is what he did.
But if you see, it looks like he's either out of the throttle or he's not running right there.
Yeah, he just moved up out of everybody's way so he didn't get run over.
We'll look for answers when we come back.
The professor.
Coming to Speed this February, Unique Whips. Step into one of the East Coast premier custom car shop and watch Will Castro and his crew turn cool cars into unique rides for the rich and famous. Maybe they can do Larry Mack's golf cart starting February 23rd at 9 p.m.
Now, DW said the whole time he worked with Hammond, it was a unique whip.
Yeah, it took a unique whip to get him to do anything. You had to unique up on him to get him to do it.
Sneak up on it. Let's go back to the garage and get an update on Dale Jr. and Kurt Busch.
Well, let's start with Kurt Busch, Mike. I did talk to him, and he said he ran the car out of gas. That was the plan. They deliberately did that. Right now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is surrounded by his crew. What happened to you?
We just ran out of gas. I thought we'd blown the motor because I looked down when it was slowing down. I looked down, didn't have no oil pressure, but that's because the motor wasn't running. I felt my foot in it. It sounded like it was running, but it wasn't.
Did your heart stop when you looked at that oil pressure gauge and saw 0?
Nah, not really. I mean, they build these things every day. That's the way you got to look at it. When I was a lot younger, I'd get bent out of shape over it, but you can't worry about stuff like that. I'm sure you can ask Richie Gilmore. He'll tell you a different story.
Okay, thanks, Junior.
Boy, he looks a lot happier than he sounded when that thing quit running.
Boy, he did.
Jeremy Mayfield just climbed the hill.
Yeah, he's out of fuel, too. Yeah, we got a handle on this now, folks. When we see them slowing down, I guess they're out of fuel.
And again, they'll have to make a pit stop in that 50 laps, knowing that they can run about 35 laps on fuel.
Look at that quarter panel. That
Wow.
right rear quarter panel. Something happened there.
Looks like a tire.
Yeah.
You know, like had a tire go bad. That is one of those things that make you go,
The rear of that quarter panel was tore up
It
substantially.
was. We'll give our trusty man, Steve Burns or Doc Bergen over and check that out on the 19 car, guys.
It's almost like somebody hooked it. If it
Something
wasn't his
happened back
tire.
We see Ricky Rudd in the 21 car. He's back out there. Michael Fatback McSwain is crew chief, and that Motorcraft team, they've made repairs to those front fenders, and he's back out there.
What do you think? Do you think they fixed it better?
That's the way it's supposed to work. That was my theory.
That's right. Now that we have the chance.
Looks like Greg Biffle in the 16 car just ran out of fuel.
Yeah.
Steve?
Mike, they're doing the same thing to Brian Vickers in the 25. They're going to run him out of fuel as well. Interestingly enough, I spoke to Brian Weitzel with Hendrick Motorsports. I don't know about all the Hendrick cars, but I do know that after the shootout, the 25 car will go back to the team shops in Concord, North Carolina. They'll work on the body a little bit and bring it back here as the backup car for the Daytona 500. Weitzel saying that these cars are bump drafting so much now that they get beat up in the shootout. Dick Berggren.
I'll take a look at the 19 car. The tire, the right rear tire on Jeremy Mayfield's car has shredded, and that is what has caused the damage to the right rear fender. So we're now seeing clear evidence of tire problems here at Daytona.
Well, you know, one time it's just, you know, bad luck, or, you know, you don't think a whole lot about it. Yeah, but 2 times in a row on 2 different cars, chunks of rubber everywhere.
And Darrell, this has to be a challenge because you know the one thing that always fights you at Daytona is the car wants to push and not turn. So you keep trying to free it up, keep trying to free it up. But if this is going on with the right rear tire, that means you can't free it up either.
No, that's a big problem. Big trouble.
More from Daytona after this word. Speed Channel's coverage of Budweiser Shootout Practice is presented by Office Depot, taking care of business.
I think our cameraman's been over in the, what do they call that new refreshment center over there? Artie, you've been over there messing around, eh?
Is that Lake Lloyd, or is that our director's trying to tell us that that's the Atlantic Ocean? He's very sure it is.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think he's directing from Jacksonville. I think he's still in that post-Super Bowl glow.
That would be Artie Kempner, right?
All right. Dale Jr.'s tire from the afternoon session that we showed you earlier on Speed. That's the right rear at the end of the session.
Yeah, and then does that look vaguely familiar? They didn't go borrow that from Dale Jr., I can promise you.
Well, let's get an expert view. Here's Steve.
With Rusty Wallace. Mike, and Rusty, are we seeing a tire problem here? How about the tires on your car? You just had a good run.
I don't know. I've heard that of a couple cars, but we haven't had any problems. We just run 37 straight laps just then, and I haven't seen anything. We went out and ran, so it ran out of gas, and everything looks great right now. I mean, so I don't know what's causing it, but we haven't seen it.
I got to ask you, is this the first official hot rod of 2005?
Yeah, this is the first official hot rod of 2005, no doubt about it. This is a Bud Shootout car. There's serial number 058. We brought 2 cars down here to test with. The one car was real good. The one car was not so good.
And so we brought the third car back for the Bud Shootout. It's not as good as the 500, that's for sure, but it's drafting well. And I just hope tomorrow that we can get ourselves up through that pack and win this thing.
Rusty, I know it's business as usual. You guys are racers. You want to get faster every lap. But have you thought about the emotional part of it being your last February in Daytona?
No, I really haven't. I've been asked that a whole lot, and I just haven't had time to let that sink in at all. I've just been driving hard and business as usual. Spring shocks, sway bars, get the thing handled right, all that, sign some autographs, make the fans happy, do the best job we can for the sponsors, the whole thing. I haven't been no tears in my beers yet or boo-hooing, man. It's just been driving cars. But I hear where you're going with it. I should, you know, I probably have some emotions after the 500, but not
I think I see a few tears, right?
Where they at? Somewhere okay.
All right, thanks a lot, Rusty. Let's go to Dick.
Well, Jeff Gordon has also had no tire problems whatsoever here at Daytona. How's your car?
Well, it handles really good. I think the balance we're pretty close on. I'd like to have a little bit more speed, you know, with the new restrictor plates. It's a little bit tougher to get up through the field. So, you know, we're just fine-tuning on it, but so far everything feels pretty good.
Any problem running wide open all the way around?
No, not unless I'm going to run in the back of somebody in front of me.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, that could happen. He is second fastest on the speed chart, so if he wants more speed, what does it say about the other 18 behind him?
And we've seen the bump drafting. I heard somebody say, one of the drivers saying, Jimmy Johnson, that's how you move the pack along. And these guys are putting big bars in the front bumpers, big bars in the rear, so they can bump draft without tearing the nose or the tail off the car.
We're seeing only about 3 cars out there now, and one of those cars looks like it's coming to pit road. Looks like Ryan Newman in the 12. So right now, we're riding with Dale Jarrett in the 88, and we only have one other car out there with him right now.
Well, that's Ricky Rudd just in front of him.
And you can hear the RPM never changing through the corner. You heard Jeff Gordon talk about running wide open, never lifting the throttle. You notice the brake, never touch the brake. Of course, in the draft sometimes, that can be your salvation from running over someone. But you see even the RPM needle up there, about 65, 6,600, never moves.
Yeah,
even the miles per hour don't hardly move.
They need to be turning a little bit more now. Of course, there's only 2 cars here, so you're not going to have the effects that you get with the 7, 8, 10 cars. You can see how the RPM falls off. That's because he's running up to him and squeezing out the throttle a little bit. See how he's playing with the RPM? That's so he can stay right behind Ricky and kind of get a feel for what his car would be like in a situation like that. Squeezes up getting down in the corner, then he starts to push the throttle back down, pick the RPM back up.
Phil Elliott talks things over with the crew. Jeremy Mayfield likewise. We'll be right back to Daytona after this. It's a big weekend in Daytona. Tomorrow on Speed. Nextel Cup practice 10:30 a.m. ARCA at 4 p.m. And the Budweiser Shootout on Fox 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Then Sunday, Daytona 500 full position qualifying on Fox at 1 p.m. Eastern.
And Mike, just to follow up a little on the tire situation, the Goodyear engineers will take those 2 tires and others if they need to. Those tires have codes on them. They'll check the codes and see by chance if all those tires came out of the same batch, if they happen to be made at the same time, same place, and if they do, they'll go around and probably maybe even pull those tires out of the circulation. So the Goodyear engineers got their work cut out for them, but I guarantee you they'll fix it.
Dick Berggren.
Well, with Jeremy Mayfield, and he's kind of taking a look at the tire that came off the right rear. What did it feel like when that tire had its problem?
Well, first of all, you don't know what the problem was. I don't know if he ran over something, whatever, but just car breaks loose on you. You just try to chase it at the tracks, the first thing you think of, and then next thing you try to do is not wreck it, keep it off the wall. But not sure what happened there. We'll just kind of take a look at it, see what happens, and hopefully it won't happen tomorrow night.
How much of a handful is that?
It's a handful. It's all you can do to keep it off the wall, but our Dodge Charger, we brought it back with not a lot of damage. I think it hurt the quarter panel a little bit, not too bad.
Nice job, Mike.
Thanks, Dick. So tire problems for a couple of drivers in these practice sessions. Here's how they'll line up tomorrow night. You'll see it live on Fox. Dale Jarrett and Greg Biffle drew the front row for this race.
It's a good place to start, but that doesn't mean you're going to stay there very long. They come like a pack of wolves.
I'm sure this whole lineup will change. You see Casey Kane there inside row 7. He'll have to go to the rear of the field, which is not that much further back because of the engine change.
I'm like in row 6 myself. I bet a winner just might come out of that row.
You'll see it all under the lights. tomorrow night on Fox. The Budweiser Shootout. Dale Jarrett tries to defend his title. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, live on the Fox Network.
No points. A little bit of pressure, I guess you could say, but over $200,000 to the race winner.
A lot of pride.
Don't forget the big picture. Next Sunday, the Daytona 500. The biggest race, our Super Bowl. Don't do anything dumb tomorrow night.
Yeah, you tell me that now, but wait till tomorrow night when I tell you to pull that belt tight one more time.
Hey, we're going to go biggity,
Like a
biggity,
cage
biggity,
line.
boys.
Joe Nemechek wins practice for the Budweiser Shootout. Live coverage tomorrow night on Fox. We'll see you then. Stay tuned for John Roberts and Ken Squire.
The track at the Daytona International Speedway is quiet now, but 2 practice sessions are in the books, and it's pretty safe to say that they were eventful sessions. Teams are now putting the final touches on this practice session, getting ready to head home, but we are coming to you live from the Speed Channel stage truck located just outside of Turn 4 at the Daytona International Speedway. Folks, I want to remind you once again that Speedweeks on Speed is presented by Office Depot. We're going to be here with you for 70 hours throughout Speedweeks. If it happens at Daytona, it will be right here. I'm John Roberts alongside of Ken Squire. And Ken, after one day of practice, you said this morning how excited you were to see these 2 sessions. What do you think now?
Well, I think that the tire issue has been resolved. We heard Rusty Wallace saying that they turned some laps out there, got well over 30, no problems with them. So it's individual teams that haven't quite got it sorted out yet as shocks or whatever they're doing that aren't making those tires work. And one of them was Earnhardt Jr.
All right, in case you missed it earlier, let's take you back to the first practice session, which kicked off at 4 o'clock this afternoon. It was the first official time this season that all the Cup cars, or the Cup car stars in the Bud Shootout, were out on the track running in the draft. And the first guy to run into some trouble was Casey Kane, the one who is a rookie for the Shootout. His car was bottoming out, and they had to take it in behind the garage and do a little bit of work, grinding down the undercarriage of the car. But that was not the end of the trouble for Casey Kane. He got back out on the racetrack, and the engine gave way. Right in front of Greg Biffle. Biffle and everybody else were able to get by, but Casey Kane lost the motor and has to go to the back of the pack. Now, a couple of teammates leaving nothing out on the racetrack. Bobby Labonte and Tony Stewart, side by side, they touched, but that was just part of practice, as Bobby Labonte put it later. A couple of guys with Hendrick horsepower underneath their hood paced away in the early practice session, and this was something that gave many teams concern. Just one of Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s tires after just 31 laps at Daytona looked like it gave way. On to the nighttime practice session, which got underway a little bit late. Red flag once again as Casey Kane went for a wild ride, tapped Ricky Rudd on the outside quarter panel. Again, Casey did a brilliant job to save the car and not cause any more problems. Casey Mears, I'm sorry, the other Casey. And Michael McSwain, Fatback, took exception to what Casey did on the track. Ricky Rudd accepted the apology. Now, more racing out there on the racetrack as you see Casey Kane in the backup car. And once again, the same cars were fast as were in the earlier session. And that should not surprise you, Ken Squire, because if you watched our testing shows here on at Daytona a couple weeks back, the fast cars had Hendrick horsepower. It was Joe Nemechek and Jeff Gordon. They paced away in the testing session, and tonight they paced away in practice.
Yeah, Nemechek has been strong throughout both of the practice periods, but this is the weather they're going to run with tomorrow night when they settle down to settle who is going to win this Budweiser Shootout.
Now, by virtue of winning the pole position at Homestead at the last race of the season, Kurt Busch is in the Budweiser Shootout, and he is with Ralph Shaheen. Ralph?
Kurt Busch is going to be the easiest guy to find in the garage area all season long. Reason why? Reigning champ, garage stall #1. Pretty easy to find you all season long. Has that sunk in yet that you are the champ?
It's pretty neat, just being able to go through the garage area and have people recognize us as that, and just trying to go about business as normal, but it takes 15 minutes extra to get everywhere because everybody wants to talk to you and say hello and recognize the fact that our team did well last year.
Well, unfortunately for you now, you're just the reigning champ, which means the new season has started. We got to get back at it. Bud Shootout is first. How's your car?
It was pretty good. The Crown Royal Ford was money, and we just tried 2 different shock combinations just to try out because we don't know how cold or hot it's going to be tomorrow. So if it's on the cooler side, we can go with the aggressive shock. If it's a little bit warmer, we'll have to release the shocks a little bit. But other than that, we're just getting up to speed with the car, and then I was running IROC all day today. So it's been a big Crown Royal day for me, just getting up to speed.
For those that might be new to the sport, when you say a more aggressive or less aggressive shock setup, what are you talking about, and how does that feel different to you?
When you go more aggressive, it holds the front of the car down and gives the front end a better traction. But what it does, though, is it takes away the tire's grip later in the run. So if you have more aggressive on the shock, it's going to ride stiffer, but it's going to be more aggressive on the tires. But then if you go with the lesser aggressive shock, the lighter shock, it'll allow the front end to move freely, and it won't abuse the tires as much, but you lose a little bit of speed. So we're just trying to see what we can go for.
What do you expect the aggressiveness on the racetrack to be? Is it going to be high because it's such a short race, or is it going to be casual because the 500 is still down the road?
Our junior described it as a bar fight, but the cars take the abuse. And then we saw today a couple of guys were aggressive down the back straightaway. And so it's a matter of getting through the first 20 laps, and then we come in, pit. It's like a hot dog break, like the Truck Series used to do. And then we'll have 50 laps, and my guess is teams will take 4 tires because we're abusing the tires pretty bad. And just the teams are going all out. So we'll see how it shakes up. I mean, we're just going to mind our own business. Before, we used to treat this race as a practice session, but now we've got a great opportunity to go for the W.
All right, champ. Good luck to you. And if you're wondering why the eye's a little bit red, no, he didn't lose a bar fight. A little LASIK surgery done in the offseason. But what that does mean is he can't see. I didn't see him. That's no good anymore. He's got perfect vision now, Bob Dillner.
Well, Ralph, tires are a big topic in the garage area right now. In fact, several teams coming over to see Joe Nemechek's right rear tire that came off of his car. The Goodyear officials have been down here taking a look at this tire. Now, it doesn't look too bad right now. What happened here was it blistered up big time. Joe Nemechek then went back out and seated his brakes a little bit. So the bubbles actually went down a little bit. But tires, Ken Squire, as you mentioned, you can see Ryan Pemberton, crew chief for the 01 team here, kind of poking away at some of the blister marks on that Goodyear Eagle. And Joe Nemechek is fastest in this practice session. But, Joe, that's got to be a big concern heading into the shootout.
Well, you know, you hope you don't have these type of things happen. Hopefully this is you know, one incident here for us. We've had 2 tires that have done it, and it seems to be doing on ours right at the treads place where the tread goes together. And if you ever went and saw how tires were made, you just wonder how in the world they even last. But there's so many variables that are in them. You know, my hat's off to Goodyear. I don't know what's going on. I know a couple other guys have had some trouble, but my U.S. Army Chevy is fast. It's going to be a great week.
It's been a good testing situation for you down here in January. I've talked to you a bunch down here. But that tire the way it is, I just asked you, can you feel it inside the car? You said no. That's actually what the concern is, I'm sure.
Well, yes, and I mean, you know, everybody saw Dale Jr.'s tire from earlier, and as soon as the tread starts to come off, you can feel it. That there had a little blister at the seam, and eventually it got big enough, it cut and relieved itself. So you can't, until they get too big, it's hard to feel them. Now, when the tread starts coming, it'll tear a big piece off, and then they'll start vibrating pretty bad.
As I said, several guys down here from other teams taking a look at this tire as well. You can see the Goodyear official right there speaking to some team members from Joe Nemechek's Army team. But, guys, this is a big concern. Jeremy Mayfield also had trouble during that final practice session there. He had one. Joe was just behind Jeremy Mayfield at the time. He said his tire just came apart on the backstretch. So this is something we will keep an eye on here during Speedweeks on Speed Channel.
All right, Bob Dillner, thanks a lot. And Ken, you know, it's got to baffle those guys somewhat because earlier we heard Rusty Wallace and Jeff Gordon say they had absolutely no trouble with their tires running just as fast wide open.
And remember that Wallace told us that he turned 37 laps. That's 92 miles on that new rubber. And the 8 car came back out, and it ran over 80 miles and was reporting no problem that second time around. Sketchy.
All right, folks, don't go away. We'll be back with much more of Speed Weeks on Speed. Stick around. Much more from Daytona coming your way.
Speed Weeks on Speed Channel is presented by Office Depot, taking care of business.
Well, whoever has their number on top of this scoring pylon tomorrow night will be $200,000 richer after the Bud Shootout. And here is the man, Dale Earnhardt Jr., who won it back in 2003. talking to his buddy, Robbie Gordon. Now let's take a look at how they will line up for the Budweiser Shootout. Dale Jarrett won this thing last year. Comes back this year as the defending champ, and he just so happened to draw the pole position. He'll be joined by the Daytona 500 pole sitter, Greg Biffle, from last year on the front row.
And my favorite to win is going to start third. Bill Elliott, who won this in '87, not here for the 500, is here and looking strong for the Budweiser Shootout. And you got that freshman, Brian Vickers, starting alongside.
All right, Ryan Newman was the man who led everybody with the poles last season. Tony Stewart's won this event twice. On back in the field we go. It's Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr., two guys who have won before.
Casey Kane, 13th, all the way to shotgun on the field. After losing that engine, he's not changing cars, but changing engines puts him in the tail position.
Even in the All-Star race, the old rules apply. Then there's Joe Nemechek, Jimmy Johnson, 16, 17, Mears Labonte, and Jeffrey Bodine will start 20th in the 93 car. He's a past winner of this event, and that is why he is in. Let's go now to Bob Dillner. Bob?
Standing here with Bill Elliott. He's all packed up, ready to go back to the ranch, getting out of that car. Tell me about it. You're not at the top of the speed charts, but how was it?
It was pretty good. We were better the first run than we were the second run. We tried some different stuff, and it seems like what we unloaded we seemed to be the best with. You know, Casey Mears kind of went where we were at when we first unloaded, and he was good the last run. So we're going to kind of change some things and go back. And then, you know, you've got a 20-lap segment, and then you'll go stop, and you'll go for the next. So it'll give you a lot of time to get where you can get a good adjustable in the car and go from there. So we can just bring back some of this good Coors magic from '85.
Out in that practice session, were you able to hear or see who you worked with better?
Well, it's still, until everybody gets in their race gear for tomorrow at night, that's going to be the key, in my opinion. And then you'll just have to figure out who you can work with and who you can't.
It's awesome to see Bill Elliott back in the Coors uniform here at Daytona, just like 1985, Ralph.
Well, Bob, this Gordon is not in the Budweiser Shootout, but Robbie Gordon is going to try to make the Daytona 500, and you're doing it with your own equipment, new sponsors, a new number. Tell us all about it.
It's been a long off season, even though I went to Dakar and did the Paris-Dakar race, or Barcelona Dakar this year. You know, we built a new Nextel Cup team with sponsorship from Jim Beam, and really looking forward to getting into the 500. I think that's our biggest challenge right now. We've made it to the Daytona test. We had a really good first test down here. We had good tests in Vegas and California, and now we're down Daytona trying to get the most out of our vehicle.
Robbie, as long as I've known you, you've been one of those guys that as soon as somebody tells you you can't do it, that's the perfect excuse for you to do it. Everybody would normally tell you you're coming down here by yourself with a new team when all these other organizations have multiple cars. You must be out of your mind. How come?
Well, it's not that we're out of our mind by any means. I mean, you know, they talk about drivers and owners maybe not being able to do it. And I can remember, you know, 5 years ago, Dale Earnhardt, as a driver, started DEI and built cars for Speed Park and Dale Jr. and to race in. So, you know, it can be done, as long as you understand that the driver can't do all the pieces of it. You know, I've got a good general manager in place, got good crew chiefs, good fabrication managers. The shop, the systems are pretty much in place from the shop from last year. We took the Busch car, the number 55 car, and just moved the whole team up to the Nextel Cup level. So, you know, Fruit of the Loom will be one of our sponsors as well at limited races. And, you know, it's not a new team. We came down here last year and we rolled out of the box, qualified fifth with the Busch car, and only got beat by two DEI cars. So, you know, we do know that the competition is a lot tougher when you move up to the Nextel Cup level, and we're just going to try to do the best job we can.
Biggest hurdle you've got to deal with now is what as a new team in this sport?
Well, I think, you know, the speed we're not really too worried about. Surviving the 150 now, I almost said 125 because that's a little confusing, is going to be important for us. And then qualifying good is going to be important. So there's a few things that we need to do, and I think there's going to be only, 8 spots available with the 35 that they locked in, as long as a past champion that isn't in the top 35 in points decides to race the race.
John, to give you a perfect example, I don't know if you followed much of what he did down at Dakar, but, you know, not many Americans have ever been over there. Of course, they said, Americans can't do this thing. Yeah. So Robbie goes over there. He's not there but a day or two. They've dropped the green. He already started winning stages. So this guy, if you tell him he can't do it, he probably will.
Ralph, one of the best parts about watching that Dakar rally was seeing Robbie out there working on a teammate's car in the middle of the desert. He wasn't only out there driving, he was helping his teammates as well, and that was interesting to see. And it's also going to be interesting to see, Ken Squire, if Robbie can survive as an owner-driver, because it's tough. Just ask Ricky Rudd.
Eddie Cheever may have said it best. He said, you know, when you're a driver and the thing gets loose, you say, oh, this is going to hurt. When you're the owner, you say, ooh, this is going to get expensive. So he's got a lot of things to think about when he comes into this race as owner driver.
But as Ralph said, if anybody can pull it off, it's probably Robbie Gordon. Folks, stick around with us. We got a pretty good crowd out here on a chilly Daytona night at the Speed Channel stage truck. Why don't you stick around? We'll be back in a moment with more Speed Weeks on Speed. Well, all is quiet in Daytona after a full day, or I should say all is quiet on the racetrack. It's kind of loud out here at the Speed Channel stage truck, but it's been a full day of ARCA, IROC, and finally Bud Shootout practice for the Nextel Cup drivers. Folks, welcome back once again. We are live just outside of turn number 4 at the Daytona International Speedway. This is Speed Weeks on Speed presented by Office Depot, and we want to remind you, if you come out to the racetrack this weekend, come on by, or during the week, we'll be here for 70-plus hours with all kinds of coverage of everything that is going on the racetrack. Let's get down to Ralph Shaheen. Ralph?
Boy, John, look around here. It's getting to be like a ghost town. And one guy tried to slide out the door, and we just caught him as he was stepping out of the Home Depot trailer. Greg Zipadelli, of course, crew chief for Tony Stewart. How's the 20 car?
That's pretty good. We're pretty happy with it. The first practice, we made some small changes, and we went out and ran 37 laps first time. Filled the bag up, put 4 tires on, went out and ran 37 laps, and Tony's pretty happy with it. It seemed like one of our better Speedway cars as far as him being able to do what he wants with it. Driving, Motor Shop's done a great job. We came back with a lot more power than we've had here in the past, and it seems like it shows. Hopefully tomorrow night we can have a good showing for the Home Depot Chevrolet and start the season off, on a high note.
How concerned are you about the tires? Because you were parked right next to Dale Earnhardt Jr., so I know you got a good look at them.
Yeah, there's a lot of cars that had it. We had a small, and that second run, the right front, a small piece of it came out. Wasn't a big deal at the very end, but I don't know. It seems like they're all got a little VLAN problem, but the good thing is I think that hopefully they're all one number. We'll be able to weed them out, and everybody will be. It won't be a concern, but right now I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see tomorrow night. The 8 car and the 19 car, I think they had some pretty big ones that were scary. It kind of came apart, but they're working on it right now, and we'll have some better answers in the morning of it might just be a nice case of one machine or one builder or something like that, and be able to fix it fairly easy.
All right, get out of here, go get some dinner, get some rest. See you back here tomorrow. Of course, when he's talking about the one number, they know which grouping those tires came out of. So once they weed through that group, they feel like the rest of the groups of tires, the batches, should be okay. Bob Dillner?
And Ralph, that's exactly what Goodyear was just explaining to some of the Ganassi boys down here, because one of the tires that came off of one of their cars too, also a little blister problem, one of those right rear tires. Now, I want to ask Michael Fatback McSwain, crew chief for Ricky Rudd, did you guys have any tire issues out there at all?
No, we're pretty happy with what we're seeing on our tires. When we came down here and tested, we ran 500, almost 600 miles on both our cars. We worked on the tires. We were kind of expecting, to change the tire, change a lot of other things. So came down here and worked real hard on it. Right now, we're real happy with what we're seeing.
Now, of course, your car top 5 in both practice sessions for the Bud Shootout, but hey, dude, this is just practice. It got a little bit emotional here in this garage area after that incident on the racetrack. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, this is Daytona. It's close out there. It's front draft going on, and nobody wants to tear up their car, especially if you feel like you got a good car. So, it's just one of them racing deals. Emotions run high. Just button it all up, put it back together, and go race tomorrow.
How tough was this car after that little incident? Because we saw you did have some damage there to the front air dam.
Yeah, we're pretty happy with it. Went back out, and the car did pretty much what it had done before. We didn't see anything in the steering. And tires look just as good as they had before. We got 25 laps on, so yeah, we're okay.
Guys, this is just practice, but Ken Squire, after all, it's the Great American Race. Yes, it's the Bud Shootout tomorrow night, but this is the first race of the year, and that's why emotions are high here in the garage area.
You bet. And the hundreds of hours that have been put in these cars, that makes all the difference when you see something like what we saw happen out here when Mears got loose. I thought it was interesting earlier tonight that VW and Larry Mack were talking about that Stewart run. Remember, he ran the outside. He tried several different things, went back to the bottom, and all the time he was working those tires, and I thought he really looked strong. And then the big surprise was when Newman, with no help, shot up the middle. Boy, it's anybody's race tomorrow evening when you get down to the Budweiser Shootout for 175 miles.
All right, it is all part of racing at Daytona, and part of our coverage on Speed Channel is our Subway Get Toasted moment. And today we're going to accentuate the positive story from today's practices for the Bud Shootout, where Joe Nemechek, as he paced both practices at better than 191 miles per hour. Folks, stick with us. We still got a lot more to come your way live from the Speed Channel stage truck located just outside of Turn 4 at Daytona. Come on by and see us. If you're in front of your TV set, stay right there. Welcome back, everybody. We are live outside of Turn 4 at the Daytona International Speedway on the Speed Channel stage truck. Here's what's coming up on TV tomorrow. Nextel Cup Series practice kicks everything off at 10:30. Then it is more Speed Weeks on Speed at 12:30. Right here live from the stage truck. Then the big event, the Advanced Discount Auto Parts 200 for the ARCA Series. That green flag shortly after 4 o'clock. We'll be back again on the stage truck at 6. And then don't forget all new editions of Speed News at 7 and 11 o'clock. All right, let's get you back once again into the garage area where Ralph Shaheen is standing by. Ralph?
John, they just put the cover on Ryan Newman's machine, which means the crew's all done. They're ready to go home, and the car was all in one piece. Ryan's ready to get a little rest and relaxation before he gets back into the car tomorrow and the Bud Shootout. You're starting 9th, I guess, at 7th. All right. I was trying to